Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second series of Bridging the Gap with Topcon Magnet and Autodesk Construction Solutions. In this webinar, we're going to focus on the horizontal workflows made possible by the connections and integrations between Topcon Magnet products and the Autodesk Construction Cloud or the Autodesk Construction Solutions. So I want to take a second and quickly talk about Topcon Solutions. We are the direct sales retail division of Topcon Positioning Systems. We currently have 13, but it's soon going to be 15 different brick and mortar locations throughout the US. Now, the way that Topcon traditionally worked before was that Topcon traditionally sold products through a channel of independent specialty dealers since the early 2000s, but many factors have contributed to a change in this model. And Topcon Solution Stores represent this change as a consolidation of formerly independent dealers into a national manufacturer direct retail organization. Now, Topcon Solution Stores, we offer a new modern kind of model for servicing not only the civil construction marketplace, but also the vertical construction marketplace that the older independent dealer models could not provide. Now, Topcon Solutions, along with our partner Autodesk, the leader in design and infrastructure development software, we offer our customers a complete solutions approach, combining Topcon's leadership in precision measuring and positioning technology with Autodesk software, as well as the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Then we connect it all together for our customers with world-class technical services, support, and training. Our goal is to really provide our customers with a truly complete solution for any project that they face. So in talking about that, again, today's agenda is to really talk about the connection that we will have from the office to the field, from the design application to the actual controller in the dozer itself. How do we get that data across? How do we translate it? And we're going to talk about a few different solutions today and how this all works into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So where I want to start, and I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but I want to start talking about the data silos that we have. We know this is a big issue in our industry, whether you're using, Autodesk products, we're using Trimble, we're using Tekla, you're using Bluebeam, CAD MEP. There are so many different potential ways to go through this data. And unfortunately, what we've seen a lot of times is that it's hard to maintain like the versioning, what data is being published, if it can be assumed in a way that is appropriate for our teams or our softwares, the current workflows that we have. There are a lot of data silos out there with our data. Now, the challenges that we currently see in construction today, we know that there are razor thin margins, there's tight schedules, going back to that siloed information, right? Labor shortages, distributed teams, and uncertainty. So we're finding that over and over again, these are challenges that a lot of customers currently face in construction in general. Now, the pitfalls of construction, there's a lot of different ones. We're going to talk about the 25% of costs that are spent on rework. $10 million of claims are filed each day in the US because of construction defects. The point on rework there, my stepfather is a union operator, a heavy equipment operator, a grader. And on one of his recent projects, he told me that he had spent 6-7 hours cutting a curb and grading on a project, only to find out when he came into work the next day, he had to go back and redo a lot of it because the design had changed. And that rework can cost, it can cost a lot of money because even if it's just a few hours, it can build up over the course of the project depending on how many, overlaps or how much rework needs to be done. And really, we're seeing that is because there's a data loss within our industry. I mean, this is all of construction, horizontal or vertical. We see a gap in between the planning and the design when it goes through design into construction, and then finally from construction to operation. Generally, this is, can be contributed or attributed to a lot of those data silos that we have, the different pieces of software that others utilize, or even just lack of communication with the project in terms of getting started sooner at different points, whether it's getting the construction team involved sooner with design, the design team sooner with planning, There are many different ways to look at overcoming this. Now, as I talk about overcoming this, of course, as I was saying there, the increased collaboration, anytime we can increase the collaboration between our project teams, really the possibilities are endless. The phasing work between trades can be better planned out, leading to fewer delays as the teams are waiting to get into the same area to work, or, just providing the, I guess, the environment that a lot of those problems can be addressed and resolved sooner. Now, the single source of truth, that's also a big piece for this, right? Rework, of course, seems unavoidable, but a lot of that rework is caused by poor project data, right? And we're seeing that again with those different data silos. It's very, very beneficial to have a single source of truth, right? At least in one area that you're keeping a lot of that data. Now, I got to come back to this because, of course, that single source of truth, we know that it cannot be everything to everyone. It can't fill every need, right? So that's why we got to also talk about the capability for that single source of truth to integrate, right? We have to have these integrations to connect to other pieces to really bring all of this data together into one area. Now, the other piece is actually connecting a 2D and 3D experience in the sense of being able to pass these files out in a format that the machine will actually pick up and recognize. But we also have some of the capabilities for the 3D experience for visualization, or, of course, if we're doing the layout, if we're doing any types of takeoffs and things like that, we can go ahead and start connecting that experience with the 2D and 3D models or data. We're seeing an improved data accuracy when you start to look at utilizing that single source of truth. A lot of times, as the data changes, project members have the capability to go in there and get to that data. Now, that also has to lean on these last 2 points of standardization and digitization, right? To digitize that data, there are a lot of steps to getting that done, but of course, standardization in that, knowing what your standards are, knowing what the templates are going to look like, how we need to set our permissions, different things like that, that's going to be key in not only getting implemented into the solution, but also having a successful implementation and a good adoption rate for the platform itself. So let's go ahead and talk about the ACC, this Autodesk Construction Cloud, our common data environment here for a minute. So you're going to see each piece, the coordination, operations, commissioning, layout, like the actual construction portion, all the way over to construction planning. Everything can tie into this common data environment. Now, in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, what we are trying to do is essentially collect all of the entire life cycle of project data in one unified platform. And this is where we're doing a lot of our project management, right? Getting the videos, our models, the documents for the project, connecting assets to those Revit models, or just utilizing assets to track vehicles, to track, graders or dozers equipment that we have going out to the sites. Even something as small as a drill, a ladder, we can use these assets in so many different ways. Over to our cost items and then photos, all of this data being brought together in this common data environment so it can all be referenced. This is all connected. Now, as we start talking about the Autodesk Construction Cloud, there are going to be a few different pieces that we need to talk about. It all begins here with document management and going into BIM Collaborate. Document management is where we're going to store a lot of those documents, the models, the data for our project. BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro are going to start giving us the capability for the Revit Cloud work sharing and making sure that that data is up to date as everyone is working inside of that central model, that they're publishing that version to update all of the different project partners. The collaboration for Civil 3D and Plant 3D. So as that Civil 3D file is saved, that surface and all of that work that we've done in Civil 3D, saving that to a common data environment that all project partners have access to depending on their permission level. But you'll see that it also starts to expand from there. Of course, we have the model coordination, but we can start going from there into the takeoff workflows or Autodesk Build. Takeoff, of course, is going to be for our 2D, 3D takeoffs, quantification of that data. Autodesk Build is really where a lot of our Other project management tools start to come into play, such as our RFIs, submittals, meeting minutes. We have our cost management tools to track our contracts, our budgets, our potential change orders, change order requests, anything like that, those requests for quotes. A lot of that is going to be held under cost management. We have our quality, safety, all the way over into project closeout. Now, as we start talking about, why we connect the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or why are we talking about the integration between this to the Topcon products, of course, as I said in the beginning there with Topcon Solutions, our goal is to really offer a complete solution from the office to the field, from design all the way out into construction and then into handover. So we're seeing that some of these tools that I'm going to show you today, such as our exchange for Autodesk, these tools are going to work right into the design portion for us. 3D exchange, this is a tool that we can utilize to start translating our data and start placing control points, a lot of things like that. But one big thing that I want to make sure that I say before I start talking about these different areas of Topcon is that you do not need all of these pieces. I want to show you guys a few different pieces that we currently have available for you to go ahead and get this data from the design over into the field, right into that operator's controller, okay? Which today what we're going to be talking about is 3DMC, Topcon's 3D machine control software for operating within that equipment. Now, we're also going to talk about how to get that data to the piece of equipment. That's a huge thing that we've seen. The current workflows are either to remote in and send over data, transfer data that way so everyone has that up-to-date file. We've also seen the other workflow that's typically being used is to download this data, whether it's, you've translated that DWG and the points files, the lines, the surfaces over into a TP3 file for Topcon machine control to interpret, or you're essentially translating that down into the thumb drive, and then that would be manually loaded onto the controller within the equipment itself, which is a pretty common workflow that we see today. So we're going to talk about different ways to get around that, essentially, right? Different ways to better that workflow, okay? And with that, we have to talk about Topcon Magnet Enterprise as well as SiteLink 3D. So getting into it a little bit deeper, Topcon Exchange for Autodesk, what you're going to see, this is a download from Topcon's website here. Once you download this add-in, it will bring the toolbar right into your design applications such as Civil 3D, Autodesk Revit, or AutoCAD. Now, this tool set is going to give us the capability to go ahead and start exporting that data into a format that our machine control can understand. In this case, we're seeing here in Civil 3D that we can export out to magnet field if we're trying to, let's say, pull points or set grade stakes. We're trying to have layout for grade, or anything really like that. We can start connecting that data to magnet field. You'll also see 3DMC for that TP3, our points files, lines, and then our surfaces. Now, you're also going to see this tool here within Revit. It's not going to give us the surface file, but it can go ahead and export this out as a magnet job file, the magnet MXL zip, or export it out to 3DMC, PT3, or LN3 for our lines. Well, actually, never mind. There is the surface down here for the TN3. So we're going to have the same functionality and capabilities here within Autodesk Revit. Now, the other portion that I wanted to make sure I talked about, because we covered this in the last webinar, is the connection to Magnet Enterprise. You're also going to see the capability to upload the drawings, upload the drawing for 3DMC, uploading it for Magnet Field right into Magnet Enterprise. So a lot of the equipment that you're utilizing on site, we can connect this data to, whether, again, you're utilizing a total station with a rover, or if you're out in the field actually operating the piece of equipment, we have the capability to go ahead and get that data out for the equipment to go ahead and pull in. Now, this is also going to be there in Revit as well. You're going to see upload the view though, right? This is pretty specific for Revit because we are working in that 3D, that modeling kind of parametric building modeler, right? That is Revit. So in this case, instead of, we can send a whole 3D view, but most of the time I find it a lot easier to navigate when we get into our actual plan views in Revit, and we can go ahead and kick those out for 3DMC or uploading that view for Magnet Field. Now, Magnet Enterprise. We have the current integration right into Magnet Enterprise. You're going to see that Autodesk BIM 360 docs down here. That does go to BIM 360 as well as the Autodesk Construction Cloud. The benefit that I see of connecting something like the Autodesk Construction Cloud to Magnet Enterprise is that within the Construction Cloud, we can manage a lot of our design data, that versioning. We can manage RFIs, submittal packages, our construction schedule, assets, meetings. You know, there's a lot of benefits there. But in Magnet Enterprise, this is where the rubber really meets the road in the sense of connecting to the actual job site itself. Any equipment, you'll see the connected device here, any equipment that is logged on and tied to our account for Magnet Enterprise, you'll be able to see exactly what they're doing. If they're out with a total station making grade points, you'll see those grade points, the elevations in the data, and actually who's out there doing it. If they're trying to do takeoffs on a dirt pile, you'll be able and generate like a surface from it to get that volume from it. You'll be able to see that data there as well. You're also going to be able to connect to any of these projects that you have going on within Magnet Enterprise. You're going to see those, again, connected devices, but also real time. Now, another benefit here is that all of the Topcon Magnet products can connect back to Magnet Enterprise. So if we start talking about Magnet 3D Exchange here, we do have that integration here, right, with ACC. We can go right to desktop, right through the desktop connector, right to Autodesk Docs, getting into any of our projects and importing that DWG from CAD or from Civil 3D, or of course, if you export that out of Revit, we can import that in right here to go ahead and start making our surface files, converting them into polylines and getting them ready to go out to the actual machine. Now, also on that note, you're going to see that it will connect to Enterprise here. So we can connect right into an Enterprise project and we can pull any data that we have there. Now, of course, Enterprise is straight connected to BIM 360 docs that way. So you're going to see pretty much two the same ways to actually get that data out to the field. It's really whichever you prefer. You're also going to see upload current job for Magnet Field and upload current job for 3DMC. But what I will tell you, the other piece of software we're really going to talk about today is going to be SiteLink. SiteLink is one of the ways to essentially get this data right out into the machine. SiteLink has that connection in terms of like a GPS. It knows exactly where these sites are. And as a piece of equipment comes into that site, it knows that, you know, it needs the data from that site. Now, you're going to see on this side here, connecting to the V2 server, there's establishing the connection to that site within Magnet 3D Exchange. And you'll notice that we can start setting up the data a little bit here for SiteLink. And what I mean by that is, yes, we're going to start translating the DWG, that line work, the points, that surface. We're going to translate that into data that the machine control can understand. But we also have the capability to start translating the line work, like the layers, the layer information. Let me make that one clear. The layer information within that DWG or that design file, to go ahead and start grouping those things into what are called design sets. Again, design sets let us grab those layers, group them together so we can turn them on and off for that visualization purpose as we get into SiteLink and further into the actual machine itself, which of course is very, very important as we start looking at, you know, the controllers in those machines. If you're working on a 4-inch controller all the way up to maybe a 10-inch controller, it's going to be really hard to to navigate through that file if all of the line work, all of the points, everything like that is in that file. So design sets is where we can go to start essentially filtering down that data for our operators and aligning them with what are called tasks in SiteLink. I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. So the next product I wanted to talk about, you're going to notice there is not much difference here. This is Magnet Construct. Within Magnet Construct, you're going to see a lot of these tools are available there as well, so I quickly wanted to talk about that one. But the other piece that I really want to make sure I dive into here is going to be SiteLink. Now, this is SiteLink V2. With SiteLink, this is again where we take our design data and we will connect it to the actual location. You're going to see Google and Bing Maps being used here. Connecting it to its actual location within the United States or within the world, honestly, and then start setting up what we have in terms of the overall site, any regions that we may have for material storage, equipment storage, but also where we can start tying those design sets that I talked about to tasks, such as I have notated here. In this case, I have taken my retention pond layers and assigned them to a task to get my dozer or my excavator ready to go ahead and start excavation for our retention pond. Now, SiteLink is essentially a site management platform. This is web-based, so you can access it from anywhere at any time. On that note as well, we do also have the Haul app. So if someone is driving their truck, they can check in on the Haul app for how much material they are loaded with, where they unloaded on the site, and how much was unloaded on the site. So we have some integrations there as well, but SiteLink is a site management platform, right? In the sense of, you'll notice we can see our different machines, whether it's the haul trucks bringing stuff in, it's a grader actually grading out, or if it's a dozer or excavator, you can see those equipment actually working on the site. We're going to get the telematic information for all of those pieces of equipment, know which operator is operating what piece of equipment, and essentially what task they're assigned to, kind of how our progress has been going, and pulling haul reports, delay reports, all kinds of data from that actual site. Now, kind of going back to my previous point here, one of the other pieces that is very, very important, like I'm showing here, is really filtering that data. You're going to see here I've set the task for that retention pond, and essentially I've enabled the tin surface, and there are other layers that are associated to this that I can go ahead and activate, but I've activated the tin surface here really to give the operator just this filtered view of that retention pond and what they need to do there. Now, on these other slides, this is going to show the task manager. This is essentially how you can build out those tasks and manage which design sets or what design data is held within those tasks. The metadata manager is the other really big piece of this site management tool for tracking our assets. Like I said, our delays, any materials that we may have on our site, the actual operators, our regions, shift plans, all the way down to weighing destinations, hauliers, locations, different mixes. There's a lot of information that we can track from the site here. Now, before I go over to the final portion, because that's where we got to get to, right? We got to get to the user who is utilizing this data in the field. But really quick, I wanted to take a second and kind of take this back full circle. If a lot of our data is starting in the Autodesk Construction Cloud through our current integrations, we can pull that data as it changes and updates. If that 3DMC operator, that grader or dozer operator, if there is a change, we can understand that that design data can either be controlled to publish that change, or we can set it up to where it's automatic, and essentially it's refreshing that data for that operator. So if there is a design change in the middle of the day, they can go ahead and stop really quick, reevaluate how they need to push forward, and move forward with with the better decision, right? Not only that, but being able to take this data back into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. That's the other piece I wanted to make sure I talked about, because that data in terms of what assets we have on site, what delays we may have that are causing setbacks to our schedule, what materials are we utilizing, what operators do we have, if they're filling out time cards, time sheets. This can be done in Autodesk Build through our forms, or the actual PMCS of the equipment, the preventative maintenance checks and services that they will do on the equipment every morning or before their shift, to ensure that equipment is good to go. They've greased everything, made sure everything's good. The software and the hardware on the equipment are ready to go. All of that data can be held within the Autodesk Construction Cloud, as well as any of the reports and a lot of the data that we can actually pull out of SiteLink. So we're really starting to connect the site management tool here back to that overall project management tool. So without further ado, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that I brought up, let's talk about the end user, right? That Magnet 3DMC. This is the software that is in the piece of equipment, the dozer, loader, grader, what have you. And this is how they can start connecting. And again, I wanted to connect the dots here, but this is how they can really start connecting to that data. You're going to see, again, either a new local site, a TP3. Now, this is coming from that thumb drive that you would go ahead and put into the controller. Magnet 3DMC, you could put it into the 3DMC folder. And then, of course, the operator would be able to go ahead and start working based off of that data. But since we're connecting SiteLink here, you'll notice the existing SiteLink 3D site or a new one. So in this case, we can pull that data right from SiteLink into that 3DMC controller. Now, I wanted to show this because this is kind of what it's going to look like on the actual controller itself. As that user pulls that data in for that site, this is the retention pond that we were looking at earlier. So they are going to see that data based off of how it is set within SiteLink. Now, 3DMC is really, again, for the operator, you're going to see the dozer here. This will tell us our GPS localization. This is also, again, how it's going to tie to SiteLink because it knows that location of the site, and it'll know when we're within range of that site to join. It's also going to tell that operator their blade level, their blade wear, the elevation of their blade, how far down they should cut to get to the design file, or how far up they need to come. And all of that data is going to be here within 3DMC, but we're really trying to connect the dots here, starting out from those Autodesk design applications held within the project management solution, but tying into the actual data the operator's getting and being able to pull all of that site data from SiteLink back into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So why don't we get into a quick demonstration of this? I'm going to go ahead and get right into the Autodesk Construction Cloud here. I want to get right into build. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to my web browser here. There we go. There's SiteLink, and I'm going to go back over to Autodesk Build. So now that we are in, oh, excuse me, I pressed escape there. Now that we're in build, what I really wanted to show here is the project that we are storing all of this data on. So I'm going to navigate over to my heavy project. Now, again, within the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can have multiple projects going on at one time. So this gives you that capability to navigate to those different projects. But again, as I go to my heavy project, this is where all of my files, all my design data is going to be stored. So as we can kind of talk about connecting to, Civil 3D, where I would access my Indie test site here right off of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, my Revit model here, this is actually tied right to, let me go back to my home screen here. This is a centralized Revit model. These are being stored here for Autodesk Build. Now, my TP3 files, after I utilize the Topcon exchange or Topcon exchange for Autodesk, a lot of times I can utilize the DWG here and then go ahead and create that TP3 file that is needed to go out to the machine. And I can either publish it right from here, or again, I can have those different folders, such as my machine control files here that I've generated, and we can publish this out over to SiteLink to go ahead and pull in that data. Now, in this case, when we get into SiteLink, let me go ahead and rotate down here a little bit. When we get into SiteLink, this is again where we can go ahead and start setting up those tasks, aligning that design set data to these tasks. I'm going to come over here and turn on the layer for my retention pond here. As I turn on this layer for my retention pond, you should see that it goes ahead and applies right here for us. And notice that, of course, I'm seeing the other layers. I'm going to go ahead and turn those off really quick. But what we're seeing here, and I had to rotate it there for a second, but what we're seeing here is, again, that capability to filter that information down for that operator to see right within that controller, okay? Now, this will also show you any device data, any connected devices that are currently working. You'll see that I have my iPhone on here. Of course, this is through that haul app. So anytime when I get within the location of my site, I can utilize that app to track what materials that I hauled and what I dumped, where I placed them, all that kind of stuff. Now, again, if you have any machines that are live and active, they will apply right here. It'll show you all of the machine data. It'll show you if they did any hauls, if they did any dumps, things like that. those will apply there. And you can pull a lot of the metadata from that to generate those reports that can go back into that XLSX format, or we can translate it, of course, over into PDF, anything like that. But we can store either one of those files within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So now that we've made the connection, the other quick piece that I'll make sure I go into is the 3DMC here. Again, this just giving us the capability to go ahead and connect to those SiteLink sites here. If I go to site, there's my TSS Indy site. If I need to add a new one, we can look for a new SiteLink site, existing, anything like that. I can tell my site discovery ID. This gives me the capability to tie it to that site and the access code, knowing that not just anybody. So if you're in that area, not just anybody is going to be able to connect to your project. There is a discovery ID that they will need to enter, as well as an access code to be able to, of course, connect to your overall site here. But bringing this back full circle again, right? We've talked about all of the capabilities here. We've talked about getting the files out to the field. The last connection that I really want to go ahead and make, again, we can pull a lot of that design data in here. We can pull those haul reports. We can host those forms for our timesheets, for our PMCS, any photos that are taken from the site, our RFIs, submittals. All of this can help us, track the design and the construction, the project overall. But the other piece that I really wanted to connect here is visualizing this data. That's where the Autodesk Construction Cloud also shines, not just for the individual user, the project manager, also an account manager or an owner. As you're going to see here with Insight, I'm going to be looking at just the heavy project, but I can go ahead and back out to my overall account and essentially do this for my account as well. And for any of you that are familiar with Insight, you're going to know where I'm going with this. This is where we go for our dashboards, right? Being able to visualize that data, whether it's quality, it's safety, the project controls, how many submittals, RFIs. But we can also start really getting into the customizing of these dashboards, utilizing our card libraries here, if we're trying to track open RFIs, submittals, or really any of the data that we have within our Autodesk Construction Cloud, within our project here. We can not only connect those through the integrations to, things like Assemble, Box, Bridget, Building Connected, or actually Magnet Enterprise has a connection right here, or EarthCam, Drone Deploy. There's a lot of Esri. There's a lot of different ways that we can go ahead and start integrating that data here as well. But the last piece, of course, that I want to make sure that I talked about, because I said all of the data, right? The data connector here, this is where you can run the extraction for all of your data, how those different files change, what the reviews look like, what progress are we making throughout our project with that schedule, being able to visualize that, but also give suggestions to it. We can start pulling all of that data and not only, visualizing it here through Insight, but also being able to utilize Power BI and the strengths there. Now, the big piece I wanted to say here is that Autodesk has already gone through and made us some very, very awesome Power BI templates that are free for your download. If you have the Power BI desktop app, you can just download the template and open it up. It'll already have all of these default filters set to it. So if we're trying to do an assets tracking and we have all of our assets in our build project populated that are the same as the ones in SiteLink, we can go ahead and start tracking what equipment is where, how long it's running, things like that. We're also going to be able to track the reviews, the cost management change orders, the field management issues, or our forms. We can start looking at the data for how our timesheets stack up to how our project progress is going. There's a lot of different ways that we can start visualizing this data. Again, these are the pre-built, but if any of you know Power BI, you can import a lot of that data, whether it's, those haul reports, it's the delay reports, and being able to start visualizing how that is affecting your overall project and connecting all of this here in your single source of truth, your common data environment, the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Go ahead and get back into my PowerPoint here because, of course, I got to send it off with this. Connected teams with connected workflows mean connected data, right? This is what we're seeing as success these days. A lot of times we're seeing a lot of success when these teams start digitizing, they standardize, and then they start connecting their teams, allowing them to work from wherever they are and whenever, whether it's the design team, the pre-construction, it's your construction team, it's the owner, facilities management, what have you. Being able to hand all of this data over to an owner or the facilities management team to move forward with is really a recipe for success. So in that conclusion, we're really working to bring the office and the field workflows together, integrating different common data environments like Magnet Enterprise and SiteLink, these project management and the site management tools to enable us quick access to that data for all of our field teams, knowing that the version control here in Build and in Docs gives us the most up-to-date, version of that design data, being able to connect to translate that data to that file format the machine control needs, and enabling that communication from our office to the field. Because the other piece that the last piece that I will make here, last piece of the puzzle, is enabling the mobile functionality of this. Autodesk Build, that PlanGrid Build app, enables all of our field teams to have access to everything we've talked about today, held in Autodesk Build, right? The RFI submittals, all of the files and the forms, anything that you've held there within Docs, those assets, everything like that. This is all connected to that mobile application that any of your users can utilize in the field. All right. Do we have any questions? Well, if you have any questions about this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us, info@topconsolutions.com. Our website, you can also check out our website, topconsolutions.com. This webinar will be recorded and hosted on our YouTube site, our YouTube channel. So if you look under Topcon Solutions Store, you should be able to find this, as well as, of course, hosted on our website, this topconsolutions.com. All right, thank you everyone, and have a great day.